How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and today we look at the tank that just does not care within World of Tanks, and of course we can just steamroll with this tank, and it is the AT-15. This is one tank that a lot of people disregard and think, oh, it's just a terrible tank destroyer that really doesn't have anything to offer. It's slow, it's not manoeuvrable, and what can it possibly do against some of the light tanks that you come up against? You're entirely mistaken if you think that this tank is mediocre or average. This one, when in the right hands and when you've got the right setup, can become an absolute machine. And to be honest with you, yes, people can pen you in the cupola if they shoot at it, and people can pen you through the front of the armour if they're tier 10s and have high penetration, but the tank is not about getting penned. Yes, you can bounce a few rounds and that's all well and good, but the fact that you have such amazing DPM and the ability to put out those rounds back against all of the opponents that you come up against make this tank super deadly for pretty much anyone you're going to be coming up against. Even tier 10s have DPM probably in the region of about this if you're in a heavy tank, for example, at tier 10. You know, this tank can really tear you apart, especially if it is a kind of support tank and playing the support role within the game that you're playing. As far as this gameplay, this really does showcase how quickly and how fast it is at racking up that damage, and when you come up against opponents that just don't quite understand how quickly you reload. And although you haven't been able to actually see it within this current game, you will. And the Tiger P here, he is our first victim. We're going to put one round auto-aimed, and that's what you can do with this tank sometimes. Don't want to auto-aim all of the time, but I notice that I get spotted anyway. So we're going to have to move, we're going to have to be kind of somewhat, I guess, decisive in what we're doing. We don't want to just sit out in the open. Obviously we're getting hit in the side, which is not ideal, but when we have the DPM of this tank, you do need to be a little bit careful. Obviously Super Hellcat behind us, don't know quite why he was set up so high, but we put one round into him, finishing him off, and that means that yes, we've taken half of the hit points of our tank away, which is probably not the best trade anyone's ever seen, but doesn't matter, because this gameplay showcases what happens once you get rid of that tank. And the Tiger P is going to take 2 shots before he's even reloaded, and let's be honest, he could have potentially taken a third one before he'd even reloaded one shell, and that's because this tank had a 3.3 second reload when not having fuel, when not even having enhanced rations activated. When you activate the enhanced rations on top of the standard reload of the tank, this becomes like a 2.9 second reload to do 250 damage, and that makes this tank really fun to play. We are playing with the top gun. There are multiple guns, and you can have better DPM if you decide to take the lower alpha damage gun, which I think has 220 damage in my recollection. Obviously that could be different, I'm not entirely sure, but when it comes to just dealing the damage quickly, this is the tank I love to play in. And when you're in one of those scenarios where you just think, you know what, I just want to chill, I want to go all out, I want to use DPM, I want to track people out in the open, this is the tank to do it in. And you can see here just how quickly we're reloading, and you're always in action if you put yourself in that kind of position to be able to do that. And you can see here the Panzer IV just has absolutely no chance. He's 3-shot within, you know, a matter of 9 seconds. His tank is completely removed, which makes it so fun. And now we're just picking on the Smeal here, and we'll put another round in with the accuracy and the DPM that we have. Obviously it's no problem to be able to put rounds in like there, and this is why you can see we've racked up 3,100 damage in such a short period of time. It makes it so fun, and with a lot of tanks on the enemy team still left alive, or at least on full health and close to us, it means we can move forward. One thing that I do want to mention as well is that this tank recently got a mobility debuff, and not just a small one where you're looking at a couple kilometers an hour, a 5 kilometer an hour top speed buff, bringing this tank up to 30 kilometers an hour on kind of decent terrain where you're not moving around all of the time. As you can see, we got up to 29. You're not going to be able to do 30 all of the time, but it's consistent to be able to do at least a little bit. And you can see here on pretty terrible terrain, without moving, we were doing 27. And so you can get a feel for how quick this tank is. It is no longer one of those just disgustingly slow tanks that you're going to have some, like, a nightmare just trying to mobilise yourself around the battlefield, and where you get often left kind of with a bit of a sour taste in your mouth because you weren't fast enough to get to any damage within the game. That's not the case anymore with the AT-15. Obviously we get penned by the SJ2. That has really good heat pen actually, so it probably can just pen straight through the front of us, but yet again we have probably way better DPM than him, as long as we actually hit, which is the key thing. You can see here, just we don't care. We can just keep face hugging. What are they really going to do? Make a bit of a misplay here by just overcommitting. Could have probably just hang back a little bit and we wouldn't have had to turn so much. And then obviously the IS-6 on the rest. The last tank left alive, the IS-6 gets taken out very, very quickly. But a 4,335 damage game. Really good one. We've got another one up and coming in just a second. But let's go through the statistics of this game. Showcase what you can do. Obviously a victory, no surprise there. We picked up second place, unfortunately, but we did manage to get 1,590 base experience, which is a good one. 3 enemies destroyed, which is also good. And yeah, we made a nice bit of credits, 250 assistance, spot 480, and a nice amount of extra XP to be able to get us towards the Tortoise, which will be a video coming soon. So let's take a look at the second gameplay. We're on Himmelsdorf, not particularly I would say the pinnacle map for tank destroyers, because you can't use your camo. It's just not a map that really works like that. However, with the AT-15 you have the opportunity to use both armour and camo depending on what map, which makes it really, really versatile, and you have the DPM to be able to back that up in these scenarios where you are on a town map. And that's something a lot of tank destroyers don't really have, where yes, you may have good DPM, but you don't have armour to reliably bounce anything. You know, you look at yesterday's video with the Super Hellcat, yes, a really, really fantastic tank, but it doesn't have armour, so you're not going to be able to bounce anything, at least reliably. However, with the AT-15, when you're getting up close and personal, wiggling about and doing all of that, yeah, you can really bounce quite a few rounds, and so that's where I kind of love this tank and playing it so much. And you can see here, obviously, just snapping on people as well is something you can expect, and a lot of the time people just don't think that the AT-15 is going to just come out, they're going to track you down, lock you down, just basically annihilate you. And you can see here with the Citadel, just put rounds, 2 rounds before he's even managed to escape. A lot of the time some tanks won't even be able to get 1 round in before you know, they get taken out. And so this is where I've absolutely loved playing this tank. And although, you know, we take a shot from the UDES, we can put one into the Scorpion G. He's not going to be able to do anything. We'll put another one into the UDES. And yeah, this is where I really do like the accuracy of this tank coming in as well. Yes, we did manage to get penned twice by the UDES, so it wasn't the best trade in the world, but in a game where I already kind of knew that we're going to win because the majority of the team are kind of over this side, whilst also having a good distribution over in the left hand side, and the enemy team are kind of crumbling and trying to escape. If you're trying to run down the hill, you've already lost this flank, so you may as well just try and commit to it up here, because by the time you try and escape you're going to end up with like 4 or 5 tanks, and then our team are just going to steamroll, like you can see here, the CS-53, and then it's going to be like 7 versus 1, so you may as well at least just try and divert the fire away from your teammate who may be kind of trying to do the last stand on the hill. Yes, you'll probably get taken out anyway, but you'll get taken out regardless of whether you try and run away on that scenario. So that's just a little tip for you guys that don't know about that on Himmelsdorf. It's not really worth running away, even if you can run away, unless you're in something like a light tank. Now in this game, we're not in a light tank, and we are on the winning team coming down that hill. So what can we expect? Well, we can get asses of hose, and although we don't manage to track him from behind, we're going to continue our little steamroll towards him. And this is where I find this tank so fun and kind of exciting for a tank destroyer that is predominantly one that I thought would be terrible and so unenjoyable, but yeah, the DPM really makes up for it, and you feel like you're really having an engagement. And although a lot of people kind of disregard this tank as well, it's just a tank destroyer that's supposed to have armour, and it doesn't have armour. Well, yeah, you might be right, but it has a hell of a good DPM, and that's where I think this tank has made me kind of fall in love with it, and I really do enjoy it. Obviously, within the first like 3.5 minutes of the battle, we've taken out the majority of the enemy team. The rest of the team are kind of crumbling for them. And yeah, this is just the point at which we decide to clean up and just get rid of a lot of the enemy tanks that are left alive. Obviously, we have, what's that, 6 tanks left alive on the enemy team, and as we're kind of going, we're just going to plow rounds into opportunistic shots into people. And yeah, the enemy team are just crumbling now, really going and disappearing. And what we can do in this kind of scenario is just make sure that we're trying to hit the shots. And yeah, that wasn't hitting the shot, trying to shoot through about 3 buildings there. Don't know what I was thinking there. Obviously didn't look at the minimap when trying to pre-aim that one. 3,600 damage, 2 light tanks left alive, and this probably would have been, maybe a year ago, the worst nightmare for the AT-15, because light tanks would just punish you so bad because you had pretty awful turret traverse, or not turret traverse, but track traverse, and you also had pretty bad mobility as well. You were pretty much capped out at 20 kilometers an hour. You didn't have speed boost equipment, which we've obviously put on the AT-15, and that's almost like a crucial perk that you can put on this tank. So there we go. Obviously picking up the final damaging hit on the T92 there, and really closing out the game. But as we're talking about the speed boost equipment, that is really a key aspect of the tank that you'll want to be getting on your AT-15 or any of the British tank destroyers or heavily armoured tank destroyers like the AT line, all the way up to the FV215B183 and the Badger. You'll want to be getting that because it just enables the opportunity for, in those scenarios where maybe you would have been too slow, you can make an impact in the game. And that is why I love the new movement of kind of equipment and stuff like that, where you can make tanks that were just lacking in that regard super competitive. And the AT-15 is one of my favourite tier 8 tank destroyers, regardless of things like the Scorpion G, the Su-130 PM. It just is such a good one, and I think it's very underrated. And of course it's free, unlike all of those previously mentioned. So hopefully you guys will take this one out in the future if you're grinding down the line, or maybe you'll actually purchase it back and have a go, because yeah, it's definitely a hell of a lot better. Hopefully you'll join me in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure to like it and subscribe if you're not, and I hope that you'll join me there. Goodbye.